right. Hello, everyone. This is Judith Hope, and today we're going to be talking about Sirius Starseeds. Now, I am referring to the star system of Sirius, so Sirius, not like you have to be very serious today in this serious discussion, right? So I just wanted to differentiate that before we get started. But I am an Akashic channel. I work specifically with the galactic Akashic records to help both star seeds and earth souls remember their past lives before this, current lifetime and past lives they had on other planets and who they were as a soul and a person and their different past lives and why it's important, right? Because our past lives, our soul experiences shape the person that we are today, shape the experience we have as a human being, right? So sometimes understanding that history is extremely important to kind of give us validation of our current life experience or explain, why we're in the life situations that we're in. So, with that being said, today we are going to dive deep into Sirius. It is a very cool star system, I think. And so before we get into that, I just want to mention if you can hit like and subscribe, that would be extremely, extremely helpful and allow me to continue making this type of content. Now, I originally did this like presentation within my free meetup group, the Starseed Collective. So if you're not already a member there, I would love to see you there, have you join. I'm going to link that in the video description below. Like I said, the group is completely free. I do have some like paid events within the group, but the group itself, the membership is completely free, and I have lots of free events that are included in that membership. I did this event as one of my cosmic connection circles that I have every 2 weeks. And it's just kind of a time for people to come together, right? Who are more spiritual, right? They're trying to learn about different spiritual concepts or grow in their spiritual path or their spiritual journey, especially those who are star seeds, right? If you feel like your soul is not from Earth, right? And you've been on other planets for most of your past lives, I really bring in a lot of star seeds and encourage them to, learn and grow, not only in their Earth spirituality, but in their galactic spirituality as well. So with that being said, I would love to have you join us live for the next session. So let's get into it. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about Sirius. And the reason I wanted to talk about Sirius Starseeds is because there are so many on planet Earth right now. The Sirius star system is one of our closest neighbors, and the Sirians have been very involved with Earth and humanity, and now Earth's ascension from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, right? So there's a lot of Sirius Starseeds with boots on the ground right now. And also Sirius is just a very interesting subject to me. It's a very mystical and very magical place. And we're actually going to be talking about all three of the different Sirius star systems. So Sirius A, Sirius B, and Sirius C, and kind of the history of each and the differences between all three of those. So we're going to be literally talking about what life was like for aliens on Sirius. And these are what our past lives would have been like, right? If we had past lives on Sirius as Sirius Starseeds, this is what our past lives would have been like. I'm also going to talk about astronomy regarding Sirius, and I did a little bit of research. Now, most of my research is from Google, right? So I wasn't going through and like really studying like a lot of like scientific reports and things like that that have been really, reviewed over and over again by experts. I was using Google, but I think the information on Google, you always kind of have to take it or leave it, right? Because you know, you can't 100% always with Google trust everything, right? You kind of have to use your own judgment, but in general, like it is kind of seen as a source of information that we can trust to some level, right? So I'm going to be talking about the astronomical information on Google matches what has been channeled in the Akashic records, where it does and does not support the channeled information. Um, and yeah, that's gonna be it. And I'm also gonna be talking about like what I've seen in the Akashic records personally as well too. So I've done a lot of different readings for different clients. So I've seen a lot of different things in the Akashic records regarding all the star systems, but today I'll be focused on Sirius. So this is going to be pretty information heavy. So just allow whatever sticks to stick and whatever resonates to resonate. If some of this stuff just kind of goes over your head or you don't feel really interested in it, that's okay. Like when I listen to content on YouTube or podcasting or whatever it is, I just turn it on and like I'll tune in and out to it. Like as it becomes more resonant or things I'm supposed to hear, I start listening. And then sometimes if it's information I don't need, I just stop listening. And I'll even like sometimes when I tune out, I'll like go back and try to re-listen to it and my brain will just start tuning out again. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to hear this information for whatever reason. Like if I can't concentrate, I can't like it's not I can't like listen to it, then it's just like, hey, it's not for me. So I would just take that approach with this, just turn it on and like if it resonates, like listen to it. If your mind kind of goes and then comes back, that's also okay too, right? You can watch it. I am gonna have some visuals, but you can also just like listen as well if you want. Okay, so I'm actually going to start by sharing my screen here. So one second, I'm going to share it. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. And then I'm actually just going to start by talking about what my definition of a starseed is, right? So starseed is clearly, it's not an official word that's in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, right? So it's not going to be something we can go through and say like, hey, like this is the defined process of it, right? Because it's not even really considered a real word, right? And so each practitioner, right, may have a slightly different meaning for this word. It may not be 100% the same across all, different practitioners who work with star seeds, right? So this is the way that I personally define it based off my experience in the Akashic records, what I've been taught. This is my definition I put together. So it's up here on the screen. This is from my What is a Starseed in AMI1 masterclass. So if you're interested in that, I'll also at some point have the link below. So it depends on what time you're watching this, like in the future, but I'm gonna have that linked below as well. All right. So a starseed is a human whose soul is of a galactic origin and who generally has had many past lives on other planets. They are on planet Earth at this time in human form in order to help the planet and the collective ascend to a higher level of consciousness, right? And so these are human beings who have souls who have been mainly aliens on other planets, but they decided to come here and become human on Earth to help at this time, right? So I would put myself in that category. I'm a human being. I'm on this planet. I primarily had past lives on other star systems and other galaxies and other universes, but I'm here as a human helping Earth at this time. Now, how we find out more about your past lives on other planets is by going into the Akashic records. And what the Akashic records is it's this giant quantum field, right? It's this giant quantum field you can go into and you can read the records and get information about basically all the past lives of your soul, right? So it's kind of like a database or a library, right? It houses all of this information and you can go in and access it. And so that is what I do with my clients. We go into your Akashic records. We say, hey, your soul started in the Andromeda galaxy, or hey, your soul started in the Milky Way galaxy or in the Doll universe, right? And then it had this journey where it did, it started and it was first, in Lyra, and then you went to the Pleiades and you learned this in the Pleiades, and then you went to Sirius and you learned this in Sirius, right? We kind of go through that whole story and the Akashic records, right? So it really is truly just like a record keeping system that is actually kept by the Arcturians. And I plan to do a future video on the Arcturians as well. So, starseeds, like I mentioned, they have a lot of past lives on other planet, but a lot of starseeds also have past lives on Earth as well. It just kind of depends. Like some starseeds have been here for like hundreds of lifetimes. Like they came during Atlantis and Lemuria, they never left, and they've been here trying to like fight the good fight and help Earth for a long time. While some starseeds just got here. I think like with my soul, I was in Atlantis, Lemuria, I left and I came back. So you see that quite a bit. And the one thing you see with a lot of star seeds, and I definitely resonate with this myself, is just sometimes feeling like maybe you don't belong here or out of place or like maybe a little like socially awkward or like you don't fit in. Like my entire life, I've never felt like I ever fit in anywhere else, like socially. It really, for me, it was more of like a social thing, like feeling like I didn't fit in with others. And I think I always had a lot of like friends and I had a social life, but when I was with the people, I was like, I don't feel the same or like I fit in, you know? And so I think that can be a big indication that you're just a starseed in general. So that's kind of some of the background information. But let's talk about Sirius. So I'm actually going to pull up a document, and this document is from my teacher, Debbie Soloris. So this is something that if you go to her website and you sign up for her, I think it's just like sign up for her email list, you can get this document, this PDF for free. So I definitely recommend like doing that if you are trying to figure out what type of starseed you are and you just want a free resource. Like this is an awesome resource. Now when I did this, because I mentioned that I did this with my meetup group, we actually went through like the different traits and people like raise their hand. I was like, okay, if you identify with this trait, raise your hand. And it was a really good, like fun way to do it. It's very interactive, fun way to do it. So that's what I'm saying. Like watching the YouTube is great, but actually coming to the in-person sessions is really, really fun as well. So these are the starseed traits from Sirius, and these are created by my teacher, Debbie Soloris. Now she's done a lot more readings than I have. I think she's been doing this for way longer. I mean, she's probably done like thousands of readings, right? At this point, if not, I mean, hundreds, thousands, right? Um, so she's kind of compiled these traits for most of the people that go into readings and they have a lot of past lives on Sirius. So that's kind of how this document got put together. So here's the traits that she talks about that she's seen with Sirius Starseeds, right? So for people who are like a salt of the earth type of person, they consider themselves a spiritual individual who also embraces the ways of the earth. And so I read this and I was like, I'm not sure exactly what salt of the earth means. So I like to Google things as we've talked about. And salt of the earth, people are honest, hardworking, dependable, and humble individuals. Often considered the backbone of a community, they are unpretentious, straightforward, and sincere in their actions rather than flashy or dramatic. I'm just gonna get some water real quick. Um, Now that's the definition Google had. That actually came from the Bible. So I don't know. Take it or leave it. But I think that's what that term typically means. So not a bad thing at all. I think that's really good to be hardworking and caring more about like, you know, your work and the community and things like that as opposed to maybe um being flashy or dramatic. So another sign that you are a Sirius Starseed is if you're very calm, even killed, very hard to anger, very practical in your approach to life. So I wish I was more like this, and I am calm in some situations, but I definitely have struggled with like getting angry in some situations really quickly. But if you're naturally kind of like this, could mean that you are from Sirius. Now, this one I love. You have a great interest in mysticism, magic, metaphysics, witchcraft, astrology, tarot cards, and alternative healing for most of your life. So, for all the witchy people out there, all the people into astrology, tarot, alternative healing, definitely means you could be from Sirius. And we'll get into a little bit of the why with that later. Um, and I definitely fit into this category myself. And I have had some past lives on Sirius. So if you really love science fiction and fantasy books and movies, or if you love to write fantasy and sci-fi stories and books, so I have always loved like science fiction, fantasy. I just the science fiction, I feel like that might just be a general starseed thing, right? Because like no matter what star system you were on, like a lot of the stuff we see in like Star Wars, Star Trek, Guardians of the Galaxy, like video games, we see a lot of stuff in video games. That stuff is like really representing what happened on other planets and other star systems, right? We get into the fantasy stuff, and I feel like that stuff is we see that stuff on Sirius like quite a bit. Like, and we'll get into a little bit of that later on too. Also see it on Avalon and Lyra. You see it on Ancient Earth too, right? So that stuff, if we're really into that stuff, it does feel like you're gonna be more of an ancient soul who's had these past lives where what we're seeing in the movies was the reality, and we're kind of remembering that. right? I also think it's interesting, like you love to write fantasy and sci-fi stories and books. So I'm like, okay, so like was like J.R.R. Tolkien a Sirius Starseed? Is Sarah J. Maas a Sirius Starseed? You know, like these big name authors. And I don't remember the guy who made like the Game of Thrones. I'm not really into that series as much as some of the other ones. But I'm just wondering, like, hey, are these people serious Starseeds? I don't know. So if you tend to maintain a few close friends within a very small inner circle instead of many casual friends and acquaintances, could also mean that you are a serious starseed. Which I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I do prefer having a few close friends, but I also feel like having like casual acquaintances and friends is good for different reasons, especially like being an entrepreneur. I feel like having those kind of like contacts or like business like in the your space and your industry can be really good as well. But I think it's more focused on like your actual friendship that doesn't kind of have like another like a networking like purpose to it, right? So if you are very drawn to healing, mostly medicine, but also alternative healing modalities such as Reiki, crystal healing, massage therapy, and acupuncture. So yeah, so a lot of those types of modalities started on Sirius. So if you're really into like doing Reiki or crystal healing or massages, like you may have learned that in your past lives on Sirius. And we'll get into a little bit of the why behind that too in a bit. If you enjoy getting tattoos and piercings and or expressing yourself artistically through clothing and accessories, could be that you're from Sirius, so like our like goth or like punk or like artsy people, you know, that like wear the black and have the tattoos and the piercings, like all that kind of stuff. That is indicative that you could be from Sirius. So it's kind of like alternative. Maybe that's a word that's been used to describe it, right? And might be a little alternative because, you know, you're not from this planet. So you're like, okay, why do I have to dress this mainstream way that we're told is the correct way to dress, right? A little bit of a starseed rebel there, right? You feel a deep connection to the water element, the ocean, and oceanic beings like whales, dolphins, mermaids, and you live or would desire to live near water and coastlines, ocean mostly, but also other bodies of waters like lakes and rivers. So if you have a connection to the water, you like to live in the water, or you like to, you're like, I'm gonna go to the lake every weekend, right? Or if you love like whales, dolphins, mermaids, like you love that kind of like sea life, that could also be a sign that you're from Sirius. Now the water planets we're gonna talk about are mainly on Sirius B. So I would say like if you feel this connection to water, it probably means you have a connection to Sirius B as opposed to Sirius A or Sirius C. All right, the next one is if you really enjoy, and I don't know if I should be saying these words, you can read it on the screen. So you are just listening, maybe pause and go read on the screen. You enjoy certain substances to relax and tune in. And because the one that starts with a C, that one is rumored to actually be from Sirius. So pretty cool, I think. If you have a relationship or deep connection with one of the ascended masters, so that would be Yeshua, who is called Jesus, Buddha, Mary Magdalene, Melchizedek. Those are kind of the big ones I know that really affect in Western culture. There's other ones as well. But if you really have a deep working with them, like maybe you're really into Buddhism, or maybe you're really into like Christian mysticism, you know, things like that, like in work with those ascended masters, that could be a sign that you're from Sirius. And there is a very big connection to the ascended masters to Sirius that we're going to get into. Um, and then last, you've been told that you're quite practical and good with money, finances, and business. So that's Sirius Starseed. So there's a lot of just like practical and like grounded type of energy with Sirius Starseeds, I think, which is interesting. Because you think like alien, you're going to be kind of ungrounded and stuff, but no, with those from Sirius, they're very grounded types of folks. So those are some of the traits. I hope you identified with some of them. If you want to put in the comments below, like, hey, I identified with like 8 of them or 6 of them, or I identified with this particular trait, please feel free to leave that comment below. All right. So first we're going to look a little bit at the astronomy. So I'm going to pull up this picture here. And this picture is from my class I took on the Galactic Akashic Records with Debbie Soloris. And so this picture is also on her website as well. But I don't know where she got this picture from. I'm guessing it may be from NASA or something like that. When I pull my own pictures for these, I always just like pull them. They say they're from NASA on Google. But as you can see, this large star right here, this is Sirius A. So it is a big main sequence, like very bright, big star. And then we got Sirius B over here, that is a white dwarf. And so it is, as you can see, Sirius A is much bigger than Sirius B. So, per Google, a main sequence star is a star in the longest, most stable phase of its life, defined by fusing hydrogen into helium within its core. Right? So, our sun is a main sequence star right now. And so, per Google, and I'm actually going to bring up this little screenshot I took. Main sequence stars, like our sun, can host a wide variety of planets because they represent the stable, long-lived adult phase of a star's life, right? So these are the different types of planets that are typically associated with main sequence stars. I would say, based off what I've seen in the Akashic records, I think the planets by Sirius A would be like terrestrial rocky planets. Um, super Earths potentially. I haven't seen anything that had like a partially gaseous composition like Jupiter, right? I haven't seen that, but I also don't know if what I've seen, if it maybe I'm just seeing part of the planet or I'm not understanding because I don't know what a super Earth would look like, right? But I would guess that the terrestrial rocky planets are the planets that I'm seeing when I'm going into the Akashic records and viewing Sirius A. So I think the science part of it would support the life that I've seen in the Akashic records and that like my teachers and other channels have seen like what's been channeled. I do think the science for Sirius A, like understanding that it is a main sequence star that's big like this would support life that we see on the planets in the Akashic records based on the science. Now, I want to go back to this picture because the luminosity of Sirius A actually overpowered scientists' observations, making it impossible to isolate the much dimmer luminosity of Sirius B right here, right? So you can obviously see it's much bigger. That makes sense. And I think a lot of people, when they think of Sirius and like historically, it was just like kind of known as one star because it looks like one star, because this one is Sirius A is so much bigger than Sirius B. But it wasn't until 2005 when astronomers were able to look at data collected by the Hubble Space Telescope that they were able to measure the mass of Sirius B for the first time. So, 2005, that's not very long ago. That's like 21 years ago. So Sirius A lies only 8 light years away from Earth and is one of Earth's closest neighbors. So Sirius is very close to Earth, and I think that's probably why one of the reasons that the Sirians were so involved in creating human life on Earth and coming to Earth in ancient times, right? And kind of being involved in humanity and Earth's ascension. So I want to show you some pictures of some of these beings, some of these aliens, as we get started here, talking about the Sirians. So this is the teacher I keep referring to. This is Debbie Soloris. This is her website. So she has a lot of information on galactic history. You can literally go into all the different star civilizations. So if you're interested in this type of content, you like to read it, I definitely recommend checking out this website. I'm pulling it up because I want to show you guys the pictures that she made. She made some really cool pictures here. So this is what some of the beings from Sirius A look like. And she has a lot of this other type of information on here too, historical and astronomical. Um, but this is what they look like. And they're humanoid. And I did have a past life where I went into the Akashic records and I had big ears like this, and I kind of energetically felt what it felt like to have those big ears. And I could feel them, and they were picking up on so much noise and vibration. Like it was such a different experience than having these little human ears. It was just like very intense, and they could just like feel like it wasn't just hearing, they could like feel things as well. So I do believe that beings like this exist based off like going into my own records and seeing this like firsthand. Now, this is a being from Sirius B, more of an aquatic being, that we're gonna get into after we talk about Sirius A. Yeah, and it's interesting because these look like I see a lot of Syrians that are humanoid having like blue skin. These all tend to look more kind of like Caucasian, like people, right? Even like the facial features look pretty similar to us. But I see a lot of blue skin when I go in there. Um, so, and we'll see some pictures of the blue skinned ones in a bit. I also see a lot of bird beings on Sirius. Like I just see a lot of like bird humanoids on Sirius A as well. So, I'm just gonna kind of leave these pictures up as I talk, so you can kind of get a visual as I'm talking. So from what I've seen in the Akashic records, initially Sirius A like kind of looked like the culture kind of looked to what we'd think of as like a medieval like kingdom, like these large castles and like empires almost who had control over a lot of the people there, right? So it was almost like you saw like classes of people, and there was like this ruling class, and then there was this kind of resistance to it, right? So there were many like rebels who would be imprisoned, right, for like breaking the laws or breaking the rules of the elites, or indentured servitude servants. And then I also saw that people were kind of like executed publicly. You know how you would see like in history class, like in medieval times, they would take people out and like hang them in the stocks or leave them in the stocks to like pass away. I think there was stuff like that that was done as well. So it just has this very like medieval type of feel to it. I think a good example of what this may have looked like would be like Hunger Games, because Hunger Games has that with like the capital, they're kind of like the ruling elite. But then they have all these different classes and groups of people like District 1, District 2, right? And they have like indentured servitudes like in the servants in the Hunger Games, right? But they also have this advanced technology. So I kind of feel like the Hunger Games would probably be like a good representation of what that may have looked like on Sirius. But eventually, the empire was overthrown, and the Sirians actually became some of the most metaphysically advanced beings off planet, right? So that's the current Sirians. And after this dark period ended on Sirius, the Sirius Mystery Schools were built. And these were very advanced, like training centers and schools where you could learn basically everything about, the metaphysical, spiritual types of like concepts, ideas, teachings, modalities, right? These were some of the most advanced training centers or universities, and they're known as the Mystery Schools. So the Ascended Masters actually taught there, right? So you could literally go and like get a class from like Buddha. Like, how cool is that, right? And aliens and humanoid aliens would travel from all over the Milky Way galaxy to come to Sirius and to learn at these schools, right? Because they were just such a big place for like spiritual advancement and spiritual studies, right? So that's kind of the connection. If you do work with the Ascended Masters a lot in this lifetime and you love it, like that's kind of the connection to Sirius, is that you may worked with them at the Sirius Mystery Schools as well in your past lives. Now they do have Sirius Mystery Schools here. Like they are real organizations. I haven't really been involved with them. I think maybe I'm not sure if the place I went to was involved with the Sirius Mystery Schools or not to do a meditation. I think I did go to one meditation there. So I don't have a lot of background or experience working with the Sirius Mystery Schools, but I have had clients that have gone and really learned at those schools, and now they're gonna like help bring more of this information from the golden age of Sirius, where all this information in these schools and these universities was housed. They're bringing that to Earth. So I have seen that. And I think too, one of the reasons that Sirius like built these universities, built these mystery schools, is because after the fall of Lyra, which was attacked by reptilians in the Lyran and Reptilian Wars, basically like all of the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge the Lyrans had was destroyed. The reptilians just went in, they were destroying everything, causing all kind of chaos and havoc. Right. So the Syrians were like, hey, like, we need to make sure this knowledge is like collected and we have databases of it and it's stored. Right. So that's another reason they created kind of these like universities and like serious like mystery schools as well, right? Is to kind of have that data stored in physical form. All right, I'm just gonna get some water real quick. Now I'm gonna go back up here. Here we go. Okay. So, Sirius has a direct link with our solar system, and the Sirians have been amongst us since the time of the Mayan and the Egyptian civilizations. Um, they gave the Egyptians much more advanced astronomical and medical information, and also gave the Mayan race advanced knowledge. And so one book I've read is Jesus and the Essenes by Dolores Cannon. If you haven't read that book, it's so good. Like basically one of Dolores Cannon's like hypnotist patients was alive during the time of Jesus, and he was part of this like secret group called the Essenes, and he actually like taught Jesus, like he was his teacher. But the Essenes had this like ancient knowledge that came from Egypt, which came from Atlantis, right? Which came from like Syrians and then other groups of extraterrestrials as well. So that knowledge was kind of kept like in secret over the years, and then it was still in use kind of like in secret again, like not open with the Roman Empire, you know, that was happening when Jesus was alive. But you could go to centers that were not a part of society. They were kind of like was kind of off. Like you had to kind of like, I mean, you couldn't drive then, but it was like you would have to go a few miles outside of town to go to these centers and communities where people lived and studied this ancient knowledge. Um, so it was really cool, and I really recommend that book if you haven't read it. And then the Syrians helped the Earth during the time of the cataclysmic period in Atlantis. The Syrians helped to build the pyramids and temples of Egypt, and they are now involved with helping Earth into this new golden age, right? And so these are kind of like the current, you know, like Syrians are still involved. I know a lot of them work with the Galactic Federation and are helping Earth in the 5D into the 5D ascension process, right? So Assyrians are still around, so you're helping us out. And one last thing I'll kind of say to bring it back to like the fantasy book piece with Sirius A is that I've also heard accounts that in Sirius A there were like a lot of like fantasy like creatures there as well on Sirius A. So like the Lord of the Rings type of vibe, like that was happening on Sirius A as well, which kind of makes sense with like the castles and all that stuff too. Okay, so that's Sirius A. Now let's get into Sirius B. So let's pull up this picture again. So this is Sirius B over here, a tiny little white dwarf. And per Google, a white dwarf is the incredibly dense, hot, and faint core left behind after a low to medium mass star, like our sun, has exhausted its nuclear fuel and expelled its outer layers, right? So my understanding is the main sequence star, it kind of lives its full adult life. It does what it's supposed to do, and then it expands into the red giant. And then when it's expanding into the red giant, the planets closest to the main sequence star are destroyed, right? So like when our sun, which is Sol, expands, like it's likely Earth may be destroyed because it's pretty darn close to the sun, right? And then once it's a red giant, eventually that dies out and it restricts, and you just have the white dwarf um, core left, right? And so with Sirius B, when we go into the Akashic records and we're looking at the lifetimes of the planets on Sirius B, it's primarily planets that are just completely covered in water. And so you see a lot of like aquatic beings and things like that. And so I was wondering, like, okay, can water planets exist on a white dwarf star? And here is what I found. So, yes, planets can exist around white dwarf stars, including faint or dead ones. While the star's previous red giant phase usually destroys inner planets, outer planets can survive and new ones may form from debris. So, I was like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like it sounds like, yeah, maybe, yes, no. With water planets, I don't think those are common around white dwarfs, which is what we see in the Akashic records. Um, However, prior to Sirius B being a white dwarf, it was a main sequence star. And I think at that time, main sequence stars can support water planets. So I'm like, okay, like I'm seeing this in the past lives of my clients in the Akashic records. So I think in the past, these water planets existed. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of water planets today. Like I think these are ancient cultures and civilizations that, may not be around in that same kind of physical form. So a lot of these beings will like ascend, right? Is what happens in the process of civilization. We learn and we ascend higher and higher until eventually, like, we're more of like an angelic being, right? Like the Andromedans are ascended. There are Pleiadians who are ascended, right? There are the angelic realms are definitely ascended, right? Um, so I think when Sirius B looked more like this, I think that's when the water planets would have existed. But according to science, like what we know with our current technology, also what is available to us on the internet, because is everything known on Earth available to us on the internet? Probably not, right? As a skeptical person, probably not. So I do think that these planets most likely do not currently exist, but would have existed in the past. When you're accessing the Akashic records, you're accessing past lives. Okay. So, um, let's see. Let's see here. I'm gonna go back to this website and we're gonna go to Sirius B and C. Okay, so this is like even on Sirius A, like this, my teacher has this as Sirius B, but I kind of see them more blue like this. And again, those pointy ears. Let's go and kind of look at some of the pictures of the beings on Sirius B. You can see the ancient art. It has these like fishy, aquatic looking references in it. There's a picture I was just showing. And here we go. This is a good one. So this is an aquatic being that we would typically see on Sirius B. So because they're mainly water-based planets, most of the past lives that I go to with my clients, they are some type of mermaid or aquatic being. Now, they don't look like Ariel, right? They're not pretty like Ariel, like the cartoons that we see. They look kind of more fishy, more like this, right? So they look a little bit different. And it's interesting because almost 100% of the time when I've gone into Sirius B, it'll be with a female client who, female in this lifetime, right? Identifies that way regardless of their, physical, body. And so the wounds that they have there are typically like wounds surrounding female relationships, female friendships, feeling good in a female body, how they perceive themselves as a feminine energy, as a feminine person, as a woman, jealousy amongst females, self-love as a female. So there's just a lot of like really interesting dynamics surrounding that happened with like the female mermaids or aquatic beings on Sirius B. Um, Another really common thing that I see there, it sounds kind of weird. Like my human is like, that's just odd what I'm about to say, but there was interspecies dating between aquatic beings who looked like this and then like bird beings, like bird humanoids. I have seen this quite a bit. I have seen this own in my own Akashic records. I was involved in one of these romances in a prior life. I've had clients who were involved in these romances, but it's almost always this like female aquatic mermaid and then like a male bird being, which is odd. If you've seen the show, I think is it The Way of Water or is that the Avatar one? But there was like 2017 maybe it won the Academy Award Best Picture, but it's a story about a woman who falls in love with like a being who kind of looks like this. So I kind of feel like everything in Hollywood, all these movies are kind of showing us what's happened either on Earth or on other planets. So I kind of feel like it is kind of referencing that. And it's weird, right? It's weird to think about. Don't need to think about it too much, but that is what I have seen in the Akashic records that there was interspecies dating. Um, you also see a lot of dolphin imagery related to Sirius B. So whenever I go into like a spiritual space, or maybe I'm using a new like tarot oracle deck, I see dolphins on it, and I'm like, okay, that's like Sirius energy that we're working with, right? Because it's the water planet. There were whales, there were dolphins. I've had clients whose past lives, they were like a whale or a dolphin on Sirius as well. I also do think that there were beings who, like, speaking of the Avatar movies, look like those aliens, the Na'vi people, on both Sirius A and Sirius B. Like, I feel like the ones on Sirius, the blue ones that are more like in the forest, I feel like those could be Sirius A and Sirius B. Maybe more Sirius B, but I feel like they could potentially be in Sirius A as well. But then the water ones who are in the way of water, that's big time like Sirius B energy. So I do think those beings physically existed. If you watch that movie, it's interesting because they'll kind of like hiss, like have you know, like they'll kind of like when they get mad, they'll like hiss. That's like the Lyran cat feline genetics kind of coming through. So Lyra's a really interesting one. So if you want to go back and like watch my video that I did on the Lyrans, like they were like the cat humanoid, but I think their genetics kind of came into play in those characters in Avatar as well. And I actually went in and channeled this last year about the beings on Avatar, but I feel like, you know, in that movie, they're there on their planet, the humans come and they're trying to like colonize and like take their resources and, you know, all this bad stuff kind of take over the planet. Something actually happened on some of the planets in Sirius B related to that. And the perpetrators were not humans. They were actually centaurs, which was like, so like what? Like centaurs came to Sirius and they like basically, I mean, they made they're not really called the Na'vi people. That's what they're called in the movie, Avatar movie. But these people who, these Avatar creatures, like they actually like took their homes and like forced them into slavery and like all this horrible stuff. So I did, I channeled that whole history and I made a video of it. So if you're interested in that, or if you feel a connection to Avatar, those movies, when you watch them, I definitely recommend going and checking that out on my YouTube page because that kind of covers the whole story. All right, so that is Sirius B, our water planets. Now let's get into Sirius C. So Sirius C is very ancient, and I actually am going to go to this one. So obviously there's no Sirius C star here, right? Sirius A, Sirius B, but no Sirius C. And that is because the existence of Sirius C star is not confirmed and remains a subject of debate. While some studies suggest a potential third low-mass dwarf star in the system, modern astronomical observations have not proven its existence, and many astronomers reject the idea. So it seems like it's something that there's not like conclusive evidence on if this star ever existed, right? And I think it's interesting because when we go into Sirius C, like in the Akashic records, it's known as like very, very ancient. Like before Sirius A, before Sirius B, it was like this ancient culture and things that happened and went on. So I'm like, okay, well, when we go in the Akashic records, it says it's ancient, right? So that kind of makes sense why we wouldn't be able to see it today. I'm like, okay, that kind of lines up. But I want to go back because my teacher made has more information on Sirius C that I wanted to bring up. So Sirius C star system. So she talks about this group of people called the Dogon people, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not, but they're an indigenous group of people from West Africa. And so they actually, in their culture, talked about this existence of a third star in the Sirius system, which they called Emma Ya. So in 1995, two French astronomers published the results of a multi-year study that there was apparently a small red dwarf in the Sirius system. And it's really small compared to the mass of Sirius B. Now, my understanding is that the red dwarf is not good, doesn't go through the same, it's not the same type of star, go through the same sequence as like the main star that like blows up into the red giant and then becomes the white dwarf. It's like a separate type of star, right? But she was kind of using this as evidence that this makes the Dogon concept of Emma Ya, um, Sirius C more probable, right? But when my teacher has gone in, Debbie, she's gone into the Akashic records. She saw a third star system of Sirius C was destroyed a long time ago. However, she was unclear if it was destroyed naturally as part of the dwindling down of its stellar cycle or by attack from another star system. So did it just kind of die off naturally, or was it attacked? She wasn't quite sure. And I personally haven't seen anything in the records to really validate, you know, what happened to it either. I don't go into Sirius C a lot. Like you don't see a lot of past lives from Sirius C with most Starseeds. I had one client who I went into Sirius C, and it was a pretty dark past life. My understanding of what happened there, and I don't know the full history of it, but what has kind of been come into our collective knowledge from different people downloading stuff about Sirius C is that there were these like reptilian Anunnaki like hybrids. And if you know anything about the reptilians, like they're really into like SA type of like magic, blood magic, dark magic, like rituals, right? They kind of have their own religion that they worship, like the devil or like Baphomet, Baphomet. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But they do like even the ones on Earth, like they have that religion. So a lot of times we think about like the devil and worshiping the devil. That's like Satanism, which is like Satanism. I've never really gotten myself involved in it, but I have talked to people who are involved in Satanism, and I know that there's a sect that it just feels very like atheist and like ethical based, and there's not actual like devil worship. You also have the people who get into like witchcraft and are in covens and like they do a little dark magic there too, right? So there's like different groups, but when I really think about that true worship of this like dark force, I think about the reptilians, right? And they have done that basically every planet they have gone to, right? And when they destroyed Lyra in the Lyra Reptilian Wars, there were a lot of humanoids on that planet. They started doing like SA type of slavery, and so these different beings who were like half human, half reptilian were born out of that, right? And just because they're born out of that doesn't mean that they're malevolent or they're bad. It just means they were born through trauma. Um, and so a lot of those beings did come to Sirius and they were living in that reptilian way, kind of the reptilian culture and things like that. There were blue avians also on Sirius C as well. So there was kind of conflict between those two groups. But it's pretty dark stuff. So it's not something that like I go into Sirius C, like, oh, I want to go into Sirius C with the clients. Like if we're going there, it's probably like dark trauma that we're going in there to work through it. And that's a very good thing also to be going with a client and working through that trauma and helping them because that's impacting them in their life in this way and in a certain way, right? But I don't see trauma from there that often. I see that type of trauma related to like the reptilians and SA and things like that. I see that on Earth quite a bit, Earth past lives, but then also in the Orion Wars, right? Because the Orion Wars, like that was where the reptilians had their empire, the Grey had their empire, and so that type of abuse was quite rampant. And I do go into the past lives with clients on Orion quite a bit. So, with that being said, that is the conclusion of the informational part of this video. I want to thank you so much for listening. And I want to say that if you are interested in Sirius or really any type of galactic civilization and you want to do a reading with me, I would love to do a reading with you. I do have a booking page. It's calendly.com/Judith Hope. So my two big readings where I go into like galactic origins, into your Akashic records to figure out your past lives on other planets, are the Starseed origins reading and then the soul origin and life purpose reading. Now, this one is my most popular reading, the Soul Origin and Life Purpose reading. This is where we like really go into your soul energy and we start at the energy of your soul. We are like, who are you at the soul level, right? And so many of my clients, we go into this and they're like, this energy feels so familiar. This is me, right? So we do that. And then we go through your whole history like, okay, you first were an alien on Lyra, or you first were on Draco, or you first were on Antares or Arcturus. And then you kept your journey going and you were on Sirius or the Pleiades or Orion. A lot of my clients have past lives as aliens who were like helping on like the Earth project. That is super common. A lot also have past lives in Atlantis and Lemuria. And then a lot just have regular Earth past lives, right? Like, okay, we're here in the 1700s or the 1800s or, or whatever. So we go through a lot in this reading. It is an hour and a half long. So if you are ready to really explore that, like this is a session for you. Like I said, it's my most popular session and people love this session. However, I also know sometimes you're not there yet. You maybe just want to dip your toes in it a bit. So I offer a shorter reading. It's only 30 minutes long. And we go into two star systems that your soul was on in the past. So maybe the Pleiades are a really big part of your, soul history, or maybe you were in the Orion Wars, for several lifetimes, and that's really affecting you in this lifetime. So we'll go into two star systems and then we go into your life purpose as well, right? So it is not near as deep a dive into soul origin and life purpose, but I'm a very fast channel and I can get a lot of information quickly. So you walk out of this reading with a lot of information too. And it is a very affordable price point. It's a much lower price point. So I definitely recommend if you're just like, hey, I really want to know, but like I just don't know with an hour and a half reading, you know, like this could be another good option for you too. So I have those two readings. I also have a bunch of other types of readings here as well. All kinds of stuff. So go out and check out my page. The Galactic Past Lives Akashic Clearing, that's if you're looking for like the past life regression or just like a certain thing in your life. You want to work on a block in your life, like I'm ready to meet my life partner, but I don't know what's blocking me, or I'm ready to, manifest my dream job. Like that's where we're going to go and look at the blocks from your past lives. And they're connected to your current life too, right? Like we're not going to go into something that's not connected to your current life. So we go into like your childhood trauma, your ancestral stuff, right? The soul contracts for this lifetime. We go into that stuff too, and we clear it so that you can move forward with your life. So those are just some of the ways I help clients. If you are interested, please go to calendly.com/Judith Hope to check it out. And then I am going to stop sharing. So if you want to join us live at the Starseed Collective, what we did after that is we actually did an aura reading exercise where we tapped into each other's auras. Everyone got a partner. And you got to see if based off your aura colors, do your aura suggest that you had past lives on Sirius, right? So it's really fun. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed it and like learned about their aura and kind of figured out like, hey, do I think I'm a Sirius Starseed? Do I not? Do I identify with this star system? And you may like, I have like several past lives on Sirius, like I think around 8. And I was there quite a bit. Now, I identify with it in some ways, but it's not my like biggest star system. Like I'm really into like Lyran, being from Lyra. I really like the doll universe because I was there for a long time. I definitely identify with like Andromeda and Galaxy, but I still spent some time on Sirius. So I don't identify as a Sirius Starseed per se, but I do have a connection, right? So that's why kind of going through joining us live can be good because we kind of talk more about, like the traits you may have, and then we do that aura reading exercise as well. So we're going to do these for every star system, like the Pleiades, Orion. We're going to do those next too. So if you are interested, please make sure you join the Starseed Collective and join us live. So with that being said, that's really all I had for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, I would love to work with you one-one. So check out my links below. I also have some freebies linked below as well. Okay, bye guys.